Hi, this is Dennis from Never Stop Trucking. We are talking about TQL today and whether FMCSA has raided their offices. There is a claim online by one of the owner operators that was actually involved in some other deals with them, and TQL hasn't paid them, and they were fighting them. And this was all over news in recent weeks. But now we have this claim that the FMCSA actually raided TQL's offices because supposedly there was this one load that the owner operator found out that TQL was making margins of like 44%, and that to them that wasn't just acceptable. Now, it's a common thing that everyone thinks that for some reason brokers should not make more than 15% on their margins. And there are also some rules where brokers should show to the owner operator like how much they made on that load. But those rules are not very clear, and they are not enforced, and it would be very hard to enforce the broker to actually show it to you. And it's even questionable if there is such a law that specifically states that. Okay, so I'm not going to go into that. I just want to talk about this now. FMCSA claimed, they came out and they said, well, we haven't raided their offices. We actually did a virtual investigation, whatever that means. Now, they also said that they never raid offices. Now, I wouldn't agree with that, because if a trucking authority, sometimes if they're in a lot of trouble, something big happens, and state police is known to actually not raid the offices, like where they physically come in and take away everything, and like the files and folders, but they actually do come in those instances. And who sends the state police? FMCSA. They send them on their behalf, and then they do investigations. So they actually do these kind of things, usually to trucking carriers, if there is like a sudden audit. All right, so they do that. But for brokers, it's less common, because usually brokers don't have assets. They don't usually have trucks. So usually these things are about safety on the road, especially. Now, in this case, if they find out that there is something else going on, other entities might, get included, like FBI. But this was just one thing where they actually, there was a complaint and they wanted to investigate it. But now, what about those broker margins? 44%, that's a lot. And, this was supposedly one load. But we all know that in times like these, brokers do tend to get more money, but just due to the low volume, then they're not like their gross revenue is not that much like it used to be. All right, but then in good markets, when it goes good for trucking carriers, then in those times brokers' margins might not be that great. According to DAT chief of analytics, he said that sometimes brokers lose money, sometimes they make like even margins of 100%. And to me, it sounds like DAT is kind of on a freight brokerage side, all right, because they're looking at their analytics, and most of these websites or companies that do analytics, they always rely on their own analytics only, even though, like, if you look at one kind of analytics, that's very limited. Okay, you should take a look at other independent data websites and then form a bigger picture. But these guys, like for example DAT, they only look at their analytics, and they're like, hey, this shows these trends, and this shows that the brokers are making maybe like 18% of margins, and they're kind of on their side. All right, I don't think it's because they like brokers better, but it's just that they're limited in their knowledge, and the way they work, it hasn't been really, like, especially for DAT board. DAT board hasn't been really listening to carriers lately. They're trying to get rid of dispatchers by enforcing new rules constantly, and they even changed the way the DAT looks. The power board, now it's called DAT1. Even though no one likes it, they still insist that it's better. So like I said before, they're out of touch with reality. Okay, so if they say that the brokers are only making 18%, that, like, their margins are 18%, then I really don't trust them. Okay, so I've seen some comments by truck drivers and trucking companies where they say, well, we really don't care what their margins are. If we book a load for a certain amount of money, we want to be paid that money. No one forced us or other trucking carriers or dispatchers to book those loads. All right, you willingly went to load boards or called the broker. They told you the price, you booked it. And behind behind that, I don't really care what's going on, like how much the broker is making. They do have a point, but there should be some transparency. Okay, especially because the services that they provide, and I argued before that the services that brokers provide, like, their overhead costs are not that great if you compare them to trucking carriers. All right, they don't have that many expenses. For them, it's somewhat cheap even to start a freight brokerage. All they have to do is find the shippers. Now they have to wait for shippers to get paid, and shippers, they tend to pay late. It takes them a long time. So that's kind of where this helps trucking carriers to get paid faster. Even if you work with a factoring company, most factoring companies will not work with direct shippers. So they will with some of them, but there is a process of onboarding and accepting them. So and most shippers will not work with like a one or two truck carriers. All right, so it's kind of like you have to work with brokers, but certainly there has to be more transparency, in my opinion, and also there has to be a way to regulate the brokers, especially when they go out of business. I think FMCSA should enforce the rules on them where they have to have $75,000 in cash before they start working, not bonds, because bonds, anyone can buy a bond, and good luck trying to get your money from the insurance. In that case, if they owe you money, if the broker goes bankrupt, then you're out of luck. So let me know what you think about these margins, whether they should show them on each confirmation, because they claim that it's going to take a lot of paperwork and a lot of money and time in order to show you each margin for each load, and I don't think that's true. That, like, if they can input the load information and rate information for you, then they can certainly input this one little line of like how much they're getting paid from shipper. All right, and then also there's a lot of things going on with the fuel surcharge. Like, they're trying to some brokers are trying to hide their profits behind the fuel surcharge, because they will not account the margins for the fuel surcharge. So if they get a fuel surcharge from the shipper, they might keep everything for themselves, and I just it's hard to trust anyone in this kind of business, especially these big brokerages. All right, if you work with someone small, it's different. All right, you gain that trust and you can see, but if you work with someone that has a lot of offices, thousands of employees, that does millions of loads, then it's just hard to trust them. And I'm not saying this only because this is TQL and most people don't like TQL. This is the case with all these big brokerages. You know, they gotten so big, they're purchasing all these other small brokerages, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like they just you know, they have the monopoly and they can do whatever they want. So let me know what you think about these margins. Are they too big? Are they too small? Do we even need freight brokerages? And do you care, you know, if you like, does it matter to you if you know how much the load originally paid? This is Anis from Never Stop Trucking. Thanks for watching. See you guys around.